Hi, I'm Austan Goolsbee from the Council of Economic Advisors. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about a major milestone hit by General Motors. For some of you, the last you heard about General Motors, they were supposed to have been on their last legs and about to die. But that's not quite how it worked out. The story really goes back more than 10 years. GM had become a manufacturing dinosaur that wasn't competitive internationally. They were bloated with debt. They had higher costs than other manufacturers. They were making models plagued with quality problems that people weren't willing to buy. And what I've plotted here is the market value of General Motors going from 1999 up through the past several years. And what you see is that it was trending downward. They were losing market share, they were losing customers, and they were definitely losing money. In the 4 years up to their bankruptcy, General Motors lost more than $80 billion. They lost more than $30 billion just in the year 2008. And so when the deep recession hit, they were really on their last breath. So the president comes into office in January of 2009. The economy's in free fall. General Motors is about to collapse. And the president has a series of very tough decisions that he has to make. The president decides, over the voices of many of the critics, not to just let them liquidate in an uncontrolled manner, but instead to make a $49 billion investment in the company and to force them to restructure to make themselves competitive. Now, critics said that they couldn't do it. They were going to die anyway, and we'd never get a dime out of that. But we learned from Ford and from others that big American manufacturing companies, when they make themselves competitive, they can be successful. And so the president launched them on a massive restructuring effort. And that involved very tough conditions: firing the CEO, replacing a third of the management. It had to be a shared sacrifice. Workers had to sacrifice, dealers, suppliers, management, everybody. It was the only way to make that company competitive so that they could grow out of their problems. But they did it, and it did work. They got their costs down. People around the country started buying their cars again. And for the first time in years, General Motors actually turned a profit. And now General Motors begins selling shares again to the public. They had an initial public offering that was one of the biggest in history. The value of the company is now more than $50 billion, and investors gave them a major vote of confidence. And that vote of confidence means we can now start getting out of the business of owning the shares of General Motors and paying back the American taxpayer. But in truth, it was never really about the stock market. It was about saving American jobs. And if you ask, what did it mean for jobs? You first have to remember that the alternative was the liquidation of General Motors. Rather than hundreds of thousands of people around the country going out looking for new work, they've gone back to work at GM plants, at dealerships, at auto suppliers all around the nation. And in a number of cases, there have actually been plant expansions where they've added shifts and extra work. So if you take Lordstown, Ohio, in eastern Ohio, outside of Youngstown, they introduce a higher mileage vehicle, the Chevy Cruze. It's being made right there. There are more than 4,000 people with jobs. They're operating 3 shifts to make those cars. Or if you take the Hamtramck Detroit plant, they're making the Chevy Volt there. It's a new electric vehicle. Just got named Motor Trend Car of the Year. Overall, for the first time in a decade, the U.S. auto industry's employment is actually expanding. The critics said this would never work, but the critics were wrong. Rather than a collapsing auto industry dealing another crushing blow on the American economy, the American automotive sector is now one of our engines of growth.